Two, one.
Hello, friends. I'm so very excited to be here with Nessie from Vocal Odyssey today, who I met, actually, her husband, Lino, at Synergy in Sardinia just a little bit ago. So that was just kind of magical, too. I'm going to have Darcy read her bio and then we're going to get going because I have so many questions. Darcy?
Yes. Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Healing Podcast. Today, I'm honored to introduce Nessi Gomes, a songwriter shaped by edges, cultural edges, emotional edges, the places inside us that don't clean up easily. Dare I say, Nessie is also a poet. Born to Madeiran parents in Guernsey, she grew up between languages, between islands, and between identities. Maybe that's why her work sits in the in between. Not folk, not pop, not confessional, not theater, but something raw and unguarded, carried by a voice that doesn't hide from itself. Now she's in a season of returning to the source, writing, unraveling, listening. New songs are taking shape, bruised and luminous, cracked open and steady, refusing simple answers. Nessie also guides vocal odyssey workshops and retreats worldwide for those seeking to know themselves more deeply and truly. Nessie is currently writing her second album, leaning deeper into shadow, tenderness, and the quiet courage it takes to stay open in a hardening world. She sings like someone trying to stay real in a world full of masks and writes for the ones who feel too much and keep going anyway. I'm thrilled to have you here and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm. Thanks, Darcy. Woo! All right. So I had the opportunity recently to do one of Nessie's workshops online virtually, and it was so powerful. I'm still feeling it from a couple weeks ago. And I'd love to hear from you, Nessie, how you came up with that design and what, I guess, what your hopes and intentions are for people engaging in that with you.
Um, well, I mean, I've been doing Vocal Odyssey with my partner, Lino, for 10 years. It's coming up to 10 years. It was over 10 years.
Mhm.
And then around 2020, when COVID hit, you know, it was very difficult to do the two things that we needed to do, which was to gather and to travel. So I moved a lot of the work, the Vocal Odyssey, online, which I had a lot of how would you say, resistance in the beginning. I was just like, there's no way I'm moving my work online. It's just not going to transmit. No one's going to get it. How can I do it? But I have to say, it's been very surprising in a really beautiful way, because the Vocal Odyssey journeys in person it's got a beautiful way of bringing people together. And I think what's really special about the online work as well is that people can do it from their own homes and, you know, kind of immerse into their own journeys privately, as well as being part of this wonderful kind of collective of women. I mean, I mostly do the online just for women, actually. And the in person, I like to do it mixed. I think for me, I guess the intention, or like, it was, Vocal Odyssey was very much born from my own experience and my own journey of kind of being a very troubled young woman and really struggling to find my way in the world, growing up on a small island like Guernsey and coming from, Portuguese parents. I always felt from the very, in my early years, that it was very hard to find my place in the world because I carried a lot of shame around my Portuguese kind of heritage. And I never felt fully like a Guernsey girl, even though I was born here, um, because of my Portuguese. background. I think in the 80s there was, racism was kind of, I would say, or discrimination. It was pretty rife back then, because people didn't travel so much, I guess, as well. I mean, times have changed. I'm not saying that those kind of things don't happen, but it was really, I remember it from a very young age feeling very different to my peers. And, like when you're growing up, you really want to feel like you belong. You want to belong to your community, to your tribe, and I didn't feel that. I felt really like an outsider, and it was kind of by coincidence that I um, came to music because I don't have any formal background or training, any musical background, and I was writing a lot of poetry at the time, and I just had this kind of impulse to start bringing my poetry into kind of like melodies. And my auntie, who I used to spend a lot of time with when I was growing up, she had a piano in her house and it was always covered in ornaments. And which is a very Portuguese thing, at least in my family. Every household, every surface is covered in ornaments. Anyway, this piano was I took all the ornaments off, and I just intuitively started to play little melodies and bring, my poetry into the melodies. And I just remember that moment, that very first moment, opening my mouth and really giving, shape to a sound, especially to lyrics that I'd written, poetry that I'd written. And I just remember that feeling because I was in such a dark place, and it brought such a aliveness and presence. And I wasn't particularly good at it, like the voice I have now is not the voice I kind of started with. This is many, many years ago. And it ignited something within me, and in the end, it actually contributed hugely to my healing journey. Um, and so I guess that's when my journey started. And then I would say, some, I don't know, 15 years ago, over the years, people would come to me and say, hey, I'd really love you to give me singing lessons. And I never felt really inspired, by technique, or it was not really my story because it wasn't my starting point with my own voice. But it planted a seed, and it made me think about how I could support others with their expression. And because I think for many of us, we all probably have some personal experience with meeting our voice, and maybe some little traumas around it as well. This I can't tell you how many times I've met people who've told me that that when they were growing up, maybe one of their parents would tell them to be quiet, or that they didn't have a beautiful voice, or even at school they were kind of put at the back of the choir or told to mime in the choir because their voice didn't sound beautiful. And for me, it was very much about acknowledging that actually our voice is our birthright, whether it's singing, speaking, you know, how to come into the power of our expression, how to really relax and rest into who we are through our voice. And for me, I guess, going from a very insecure, troubled young woman, where I was on medication at the age of 13, and I was self-harming, and, at the age of kind of 15, almost 16, I almost tried to take my own life. And thankfully, that didn't happen. And the music and the singing was really what brought me back home to myself. So for me, it was more than just singing a beautiful song. It was actually how the voice and how we can come into our voice more holistically, and, how to use the voice to feel more or reclaim parts of ourselves that might have got lost along the way or silenced along the way. And so I guess that's for me, that was the intention for Vocal Odyssey. And also to kind of, it's not about teaching people how to sing beautiful songs, and it's very dynamic, the work. I'm using a lot of different tools. It's meditation, breath work, um, you know, very little technique, actually. There's a tiny amount of technique. It's not really my story. It's not so much part of the Vocal Odyssey journey. And that's why it's called Vocal Odyssey and not Singing Odyssey, because for me, the voice comes with many different pillars. We've got the speaking voice, we've got the singing voice. For me, going through like using a song is the quickest uh, experience for me in order to kind of drop the mind, to come into my body, to come into my breath, to come into presence. That was what I realized for myself, what really helped me to be more present and more alive in myself. So singing is part of it, but not singing from a space of performing, but more expressing, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think, that's for me, I guess, one of many intentions of Vocal Odyssey. And it's constantly evolving and growing. But it's really a container to bring people together. And how it's funny because in a way it's not really about the voice, even though it is the voice, if you know what I mean. It's like it kind of goes beyond the song or beyond the melody. It's For me, it's the bridge. The voice for me is the bridge of how to come closer to ourselves and how to reclaim parts of ourselves and love ourselves more deeply and excel, be more self-accepting of who we are. Um, and that the way, some people do that through, yoga or meditation, and I do that with the voice. Like for me, it's all about the voice. Oh, you're muted. That's okay.
So, sorry about that. Um, Speaking of voice, that's funny. Um, there were so many metaphors, and for someone like myself who doesn't have a singing voice, not and I'm not being hard on myself, it's just wasn't my gift, but yet I love to sing. Um, Coming into your workshop, it was so much more than just singing or chanting and all the things. It was really about stepping into my truth more deeply. And like you were saying, getting to know yourself. And it's like this never ending process. And I think for the people that are listening out there, the experience and I can only imagine what it would be in person. Like I'll definitely in this lifetime come to one of your workshops in person because I could just feel the power of the community because I
Yeah.
felt it virtually, to be with all of those lovely ladies from all over the world. And I love when you kind of put us into small groups so that we can, interconnect in a more intimate way. I thought that was really lovely to be able to do that. But the ability to through movement, through you even had us do some craft at the end.
Yeah.
It's just so much there for us to be able to access that. So I love the creative healing that you created.
Yeah.
I'm a therapist and life coach and all the things, and I'm just always looking for these new ways to tap for people to tap into who they are. You know,
Yeah.
so love on themselves more deeply.
Yeah,
So
I think for me, with Vocal Odyssey as well, I was kind of sharing with you a little bit before that, you know, the way I like to present this work is almost like a journey, that it's like we enter a portal, and I it's not just solely around the voice. We're accessing and using other modalities like ritual and like for me, like the ceremonial element of the work is so important because it becomes like a prayer, and then it becomes, I find it to be more potent in that way for myself also, as I'm kind of holding that space. It's like I want to create these worlds that we can step into, and it's not just like this clinical approach to how to have a authentic voice, like that's never been my way. My way is to create an experience that we really kind of dive into this other place, this other world where we meet ourselves. And so bringing movement and ritual, like ritual and ceremony, is really an important element of the work.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I definitely I felt that for sure. And yeah, I mean, and I just love the hybrid of activities you had us do. I mean, there and for even someone like myself, I'm not even a really big. I used to love to dance, and like now, I mean, you had us. We had a dance party,
I
Darcy.
know.
It was awesome. And I'm like in my little office space. Like my whole family's like I did feel like I was entering a portal the 2 days I was in. I like closed off, shut it off. I said, no one, leave me alone. And I just went into this like beautiful space where I just let loose, and it
Yeah,
was really lovely. So,
I love that. That's also why, I prefer to do like a weekend journey. I'm not into the whole format of meeting once a week for 2 hours. For me, it just breaks the energy. And once I'm in, I want to stay there with everybody. And it's like it builds that way. Whereas, to kind of meet every week for a couple of hours would just, for me, it just breaks it. And so, yeah, that was very clear for me when I started to move the work online. That's how I wanted to create my journeys, was like once we're in, we're there together, and then when we finish, we finish. But we're not coming back every couple of weeks, because then it feels like it's teaching, and I'm not a teacher at all. That's not, I don't, yeah, that's not how I, see myself, or I'm not that interested in teaching. I'm just sharing, and I'm creating a container that we all learn something from, including myself, because it's also, it's something that I'm constantly evolving in as well. And even though I've been working with my voice for many years, it's not that I've come to a point and I know everything, I'm still learning. And, so kind of having these containers as like we're in, and that's it. We start and we finish, and we do it over 2 days, and that feels really the best for me.
I feel like the other part of your work, I mean, your voice alone is healing. I
Mm,
and
thank you.
um, I love. I have all your music that you've created downloaded already. Um, can you share a little bit about your experience? It sounds like you're going to have another album that's coming out soon. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really in the beginning stages of creating my second album. It's been a long time coming. Like my first debut album came out in 2016, which is like, yeah, almost 10 years. It will be 10 years in like October 2026. So I'm I'm generally quite a slow creator. I think it's also because maybe I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so that kind of gets in the way a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it feels really exciting to come back to the space of creating, and also really frightening because there's this kind of blank canvas in front of me. But at the same time, you know, there's bubbling in me as well, and it feels ready to come back to the the space of writing again. And it's probably I don't what's really interesting, I guess, is 10 years is a long time. And so who I was 10 years ago, obviously there's an evolved version of myself now. So I'm curious to know how the music will also unfold in that way. I'm not one for sticking with genres. Like it's I've always been a little bit allergic to genres. I kind of understand why people like to put things in a box, but I guess, for myself, and probably from my upbringing as well, because I couldn't really be placed anywhere, um, that's also reflected in my music. And I really have no idea how it's going to unfold. I've started recording my second song, which is very exciting. And it might be really different to my first album, most likely, but it will still have this emotional edge because that's just my DNA. I like to write from the depths. I rarely write, I rarely write, um, I don't know, happy songs. It's not that they're not happy, but they're very raw, I guess. It's just how I express myself. I like to just put it all out there. I don't like to sugarcoat, or create one version of my life. I don't know how to put it. You know, I'm not really into this ultra positivity vibe. It's not. I want to be completely honest with myself, and it's not like it's always going to probably have layers of hope, and I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
Yeah, I feel like my sense of you is you're very deeply feeling.
yes.
It's raw and it's vulnerable, and that's healing in itself. I think we need more of that, because I think it's hard to access, and that's what you help people access through at least the workshop that I went through. That I'm assuming, in most of your experiences, you're helping people tap into that
Yeah.
is within ourselves because we tend to mask it, and our society and our culture is just constantly like having us shove who we are down. And so it's a really beautiful thing when we can all kind of come out and play in this.
Yeah, and I think like I remember when I first started kind of touring my album, there was it was received beautifully by many people, mostly from people in the audience actually, and some people would approach me or write to me and just say thank you so much because I feel like you're giving me permission to feel those things. And that was really like touching, and I felt really honored that that my music was, obviously primarily it was for me, and the fact that it was extending out and people were finding kind of solace in that, and like a place where they could just relax into themselves, um and at the same time I remember very much in the beginning, like, you know some people didn't know how to digest my music, and they would think it wasn't positive enough, which I always like being a bit of a black sheep anyway. And it's not really that much of a black sheep, but I guess in the scene that I was kind of found myself in, it was, yeah, it was very much, yeah, I don't know. I like to express the darkness and the shadow and the humanness. Like a lot of the music I listen to, you know, I love, Radiohead, and I really love, I grew up with Jeff Buckley. I really love Jeff Buckley and like emotional singers, and very eclectic as well. Like I had very eclectic kind of upbringing musically. My brother's like 11 years older than me, so I was always like rummaging through his CD collection. Um, I guess I'm inspired by those kind of musicians, just raw and bringing that human quality into the music. And I find it very hard to connect to music if it's just presenting one aspect of life, Um, and that's a very personal journey for me, really.
Imagine. Imagine. Darcy, do you have any questions yet?
I do. I'm uh I'm so grateful that you're uh for how authentic you choose to be And one word that showed up and I kept coming back to before reading your bio and during was masks. And in a world, in a world full of so many masks, choosing to be unmasked. And I'm curious how connecting with your voice, both literally and, maybe energetically, or what else that has meant for you, how that's supported you in showing up so authentically and bravely. I see them as one and the same. In this world that it can thrash us around. It sounds like you've had many life experiences that have, and just
I,
being alert in the world, you see it.
Mhm.
I wasn't always like that. I think when I was younger, I think especially as a woman, you know, like um, I did struggle a lot in my kind of young adult years. Like I was very much a pleaser, a people pleaser. I'd always, compromise on my own needs, and I suffered greatly because of that. And actually, I'm probably going to embarrass him right now, but it was actually meeting my husband as well. We met like 15 years ago, and you know, I think my relationship with Lino also really helped me come into my authenticity because he called me out on it. I remember in those kind of that first year of being together, I I think, because there was a part of me was so afraid of being rejected and not accepted or not loved. And so I was just kind of presenting one version of myself, which was exhausting because it wasn't always being in my truth. And I remember him, it was a funny conversation. He just said to me one day, it was probably like after 8 months of being together, he said, "Look, I don't want a yes girlfriend. I want someone who's real." And I remember feeling completely like when he said that to me, because no one's ever said that to me. No relationship that I've been with has ever kind of, you know, made that comment. But I know it was to be very true because I spent a lot of my years, especially, it would always come up mostly in relationships with men. And I was very much kind of editing huge parts of who I was and putting a mask on. And, you know, it would become pretty toxic because, you're not really speaking your truth. So then you become passive aggressive or whatever. And this comment from Lino really shook me. And I actually felt like he caught me. It felt as if he caught me with, completely without any clothes on. And I was like, oh my God, he's seen me. Oh my God, he knows my tricks. It was like my ego just like flipped. But from that point on, and not just that, I'm just saying like this is one element to it, as well as like the singing. I think obviously being with the music has also helped me find my power in different ways. And because, like I said, when I started out, or even before I started out, I was very insecure. I grew up in a household where women, you know, my dad, he's Portuguese, so very old fashioned. And I, I, I was learning from a very young age that women have different rules to men. And, you know, often I'd be told to be quiet or I didn't know what I'm talking about. And so I kind of went through life like that, feeling like, oh, I don't really know what I'm talking about, or, keeping myself small. But through music, I found this freedom. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't particularly good at it, but I was more interested in how it made me feel. And where I felt really kind of constricted in my day to day life, music and playing with sound gave me a world of freedom because I could go anywhere I wanted vocally. And so over the years, I think that definitely contributed to just feeling more secure in who I am. And I think it comes with age as well. Like I'm 45 soon, and you know, I'm very blessed to have a beautiful relationship where I've been able to evolve in that as well. and how I relate and how I communicate. And of course, it's not always easy, and it's not that we always get it right, but having that as well as the music and trusting myself. And I think also I never imagined in a million years that my music would take me to the places it's taken me, and to have so many people, resonate with my lyrics. It's really quite something. And I feel, yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, Darcy, but yeah, I guess there's so many different layers to it.
You absolutely are. And one piece that's so incredibly important that you just touched on is the power of relationship and how relationships are teachers. And I know in some of my experience, all different types of relationship, when I choose not to express, I'm shaping the relationship and I'm being shaped, at the same time. And invite each other to speak or not. And I imagine that's some of what the magic is that Michelle's spoken to, and so many others who have been in vocal Odyssey experiences with you. That's part of it, of the dynamic of what's being asked and what you get to answer through conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. You said we don't always do it right. That's not the point. There is no right. And I'm like Michelle, I definitely, I don't identify as having a voice that's meant for a microphone. But I definitely see the value and am curious to keep learning about how to access my voice. It's been very intimidating for so much of my life. And I know
Yeah.
I'm not alone there. You've spoken to that.
Yeah, I think our voice is possibly, it's kind of one of the most untapped resources that we have. It's something that we carry everywhere in our life. And from all the conversations I've had with all the beautiful people I've met along the way, you know, the voice seems to be the thing that we're the most afraid of, in ourselves. It's like more so I would say than dancing. There's something about the voice that is so exposing and that we feel so naked in it. And you know, it's tied up with so much more than movement in a way. And I'm saying that cautiously because I, it's really my experience. And, I'm sure there's people who are listening to this that are disagreeing, and that's fine. But the voice is, you know, I really take moments sometimes and reflect on, you know, how I would. Yeah, I remember in the beginning when I used to do concerts, and singing was no problem actually. Like I could sing in front of many people and do that confidently. But speaking in front of people, I felt so shaky. And I remember in the beginning, I think I used to just say thank you so many times, and Lena would be like, "You don't need to say thank you 20 times to the audience." But it was just because I found it hard to, bring my voice in speaking and how to, to connect with people. And I think over time that's also got easier, and, learning how to also incorporate the silence, because it's not always about speaking, it's also giving space and letting the music do the talking.
That was one of the experiences that I had with you at Synergy was um, the ability to just use a few powerful words and singing them out loud. I
Yeah.
brought a couple people up that it wasn't necessarily about their singing voice, it was about the power of just a couple words streamed together that really spoke to them inside, and it was freeing to be able to say that, especially when you're nurturing the love for yourself that so many of us forget about. We're so, especially in the profession and the mental health world and the addiction world that Darcy and I are in. I'm noticing more and more professionals, they're giving it out, but they're not really receiving
Mm.
and living it. So I think it's really, really important work that you're doing to help everybody.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, so I appreciate it quite a bit. Is there anything that you want to share with the listeners out there regarding some of the work that you're going to be doing in 2026? I know when at the end of the workshop you talked about like hitting what, like 35 countries next year?
Oh God. Well, I've had a year off this year from touring, which was really needed. I just needed to pause
Okay.
because for many years, like I guess after COVID, things went a bit crazy because one of the, COVID was challenging for us, but one of the beautiful things that happened, because so many people were at home, many more people came across my music because they were listening at home. I'm assuming that's, people were stuck indoors. So, um, when COVID kind of fizzled out, then things went into fifth gear. So from 2022, I guess, to 2024, I think it was like 3 years on the road full on. And then I was like, okay, I need a break. But yeah, next year it's going to be full on again. And I'm in many countries in Europe. I can't think on the top of my head, like Portugal, uh, God, well, there's so many. Amsterdam. Anyway, a lot of countries. There's a lot of, I don't even, I'm terrible remembering
There
the
is one really exciting coast the sanctuary in Thailand.
Yes. So I'm doing 3 retreats next year,
Mhm.
3 Vocal Odyssey retreats. Normally I only do one, but I'm kind of extending myself next year. So I'm doing one in Guernsey, which is where I live and where I'm born. And yeah, me and my family are here. So that's like a 5 day one. And then there's another one shortly after in Thailand, in Koh Phangan. Again, it's a 5 day retreat. So that's on the 2nd to the 6th of March. And then we have our 10-day Vocal Odyssey, which is our most kind of in-depth journey in Greece on a small island called Armagos. And we've been doing it every year there pretty much since 2019. And it's on that one, we bring in other teachers because we have, with it being 10 days, I like to kind of, again, just bring in different approaches to the voice. So we have like a really dear friend of mine, Sophia Ethemu. She kind of brings in this kind of choir harmony work. She's incredible. She just brings all these people together and it manages to make such an incredible sonic soundscape of all these beautiful songs that she's collected. And then we have another friend, a couple of other guys, Tiago and Stefano, bringing in improvisation, because improvisation is a very important element, I think, of voice work, and also body percussion. So it's very dynamic, and
Mm.
it's 10 days. That's in October 2026. Um, and we've been running them, like I said, it's like 10 years, over 10 years we've been doing the Vocal Odyssey journeys, and it's been so beautiful to see its evolution and working with so many people over the years, um, as well as kind of doing the online work, which I find is, again, it's a beautiful introduction to maybe, like it's a nice way for people to meet my work, and then they may feel inspired to join a retreat or not, but it's a nice way to reach many people from different corners of the world.
Mhm. Yeah. And it looks like you're going to be coming to the US.
Yes, I am coming to the US, which I'm very excited about. Things are still kind of in the making, but
Mhm.
I imagine I'll be coming to East Coast, West Coast, with some concerts and some probably also like some short 1 day workshop Vocal Odyssey journeys as well.
Lovely. Yeah, and so we'll have all your information down for the website so people can track you and find you and
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. And your music's on Spotify,
That's
correct?
right. Spotify and also on Bandcamp, because I know some people like to buy also. So it's on Bandcamp, but yeah, mostly all the kind of streaming platforms. My music's there, and I've done some beautiful collaborations over the years as well with different artists. So yeah, it's always been really lovely to collaborate with other musicians and yeah, bring in the voice in a different way.
Thank you. Well, I'm appreciative of you and Lino behind the scenes. Him and I spoke some Hebrew at Synergy together.
Oh,
I remembered some of my Hebrew back from my Hebrew school days, so we bonded. But you guys are a great duo. I appreciate you and all that
thank
you do. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure.